Welcome to Rich Baker and Friends. My name is Rich Baker, and I am excited to be joined today by my friend Addison Witt. Addison, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. It's not like I had 10 zillion other things to do today.
Right? What were you going to do? Just be in your home quarantined or something?
Well, you know, it's like I got to go from the living room to the kitchen to the balcony, to the living room to the kitchen to the balcony.
It's a real grind.
Yeah.
I love it. I find you fascinating for like a million different reasons. Big fan of yours. We're both from Texas, so we're definitely going to talk about that at some point. But you've been in Hollywood for how long have you been out here?
Since God was a boy.
Wow. Wow.
No, seriously, I've been out here almost 30 years.
Wow. Yeah. Excellent. And you've worked mainly in the management side, right?
You know, yes, I've spent 21 years of those 30 years, nearly 30 years, managing actors and other artists in entertainment.
Fantastic. So let's take it back. Let's say you grew up outside of Dallas. I want to say, if my memory serves me correct, was it Garland?
It was actually East Texas, Tyler.
Oh, Tyler. Okay, outside of the Metroplex. Tyler, okay.
But you know, it was really kind of cool because we had a really big farm in Tyler. Mm-hmm. My great-great-grandfather had a really big farm, like 1,000 acres, and a lot of kids. You know, they had a lot of kids back in the day. 14.
Sure, someone's got to work that farm.
Exactly. He knew what he was doing. I have a lot of land and a lot of employees from my own loins. And but my mother moved to, well, both my parents moved to Dallas early. And then we would go between Dallas and Tyler. So for me, it was like the best of both worlds because I would have the city going to school, and then in the summers, I would go back to East Texas and on this farm. So, you know, I get to roam around and shoot. I didn't shoot a lot of things other than trees, I think, because I was a kid.
Because screw those trees, right? Someone needs to shoot them.
But yeah, that was sort of the routine for a number of years. It was really cool. And now I love it, having the best of both worlds.
Oh, that's fantastic. So how does a kid from Tyler, Texas, which if anyone doesn't know, Tyler, Texas, nowadays, I mean, it's a little bit of a bigger town, but I mean, it's nothing. It's not like a big city. And I'm assuming back then it was pretty rural.
You know, it was a great place to grow up, Tyler. It's I think now maybe the whole area is 150,000 people. But it was it was relatively a small town. And of course, our farm was outside the city of Tyler, so very rural. But we had a lot of land, so it was really cool to grow up there. But Dallas really helped a lot and gave me that whole city vibe. And I mean, it was rough. I mean, you know, going to school in Dallas when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah?
Hold on. Sorry, phone. Let me turn this off.
All good.
Okay. Probably a robocall anyway.
Sure.
Okay, so that's off. So anyway, yeah, done. All right, so the being in the big city in Dallas, that was really cool because it just gave me everything there, and I knew that there was more to life than being in Tyler. I think that's really what helped me leave Tyler at 18 right away, go to college in West Texas, and then from there, spend more time in Dallas before coming to LA.
Was LA kind of like, when was the seed of going out west, like, first? Like, did you think about LA, like, from watching movies and stuff as a kid, or how'd that play out?
I did. There were a lot of, the influences from movies. I was a huge movie buff, particularly classic film.
Nice.
I have to admit, though, I had a grand aunt, my grandmother's, one of her younger sisters. There were 14 siblings. My grandmother was number 5. Her sister was number 12. She lived in California and had been here for years. And I think when I was 12, I mean, she would always come back and forth to East Texas and stay with different family members. And one particular time she stayed with us and was just filling my head with all these stories of LA and what California was like. And we had a few relatives, in fact, would come, and they always brought lots of gifts, toys, and presents for everybody. So I thought, hey, all the people in California have got it going on.
Yeah. they're just handing gifts out in California for people that take across the country. It's amazing.
You know, Christmas anytime they're in town.
I love it.
So, my aunt was a very prolific writer and creative person, and I was very creative, and in fact, our birthdays were a day apart. So I really identify with a lot of her fantastical ideas and dreams, and so she just filled my head with all that. And so she gave me a song to sing when I was, I think, 12, 13 years old. And it was the first time I'd ever sang a song in public. And it went well. And in fact, it went so well, the next day I thought, okay, I'm going to be a singer. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go to California someday. And I remember my little part-time job was mowing, cutting yards. I remember the next day I was pushing that little lawnmower thinking, I'm going to California.
Nice.
And I was planning at about 12, 13 years old. And I did not go right away. I went to college, and then after school, back to Dallas and lived there. I thought, you know what? I still have a little bit of Texan left in me, some unfinished business. And so I stayed there another 4 years, worked for Marriott Hotel, which was really and truly the foundation of becoming the kind of manager I became, because I worked with a great corporation that taught me everything I knew about managing large groups of people, P&L statements, profit and loss, setting goals and achieving them, being recognized for the work that I did there at that hotel and with Marriott, and I became manager of the year and all these things. And so all of that benefited me and the clients I represented for a lot of years in LA.
Wow. So a kid from Tyler, Texas, with an aunt in California who brings gifts, learns management from Marriott hotels. I mean, that's probably not a story you hear too often.
You got it in a nutshell. That's it. That's how it happened.
Fantastic. So so you go to college in West Texas, and then then you go back to Tyler before you go to California?
I went to a great liberal arts college in West Texas, great school, got really, really involved. I, believe it or not, in school, I was relatively conservative, sort of a quiet kid with an obnoxious laughter. Except when I laughed. And I decided when I went to school that, you know what, being the quiet kid, that's over. So I got super, super involved in school. I was in every organization, president and vice president of most organizations I was in. So I developed a lot of very specific leadership skills in school and had a lot of amazing friends, a lot of great Texas people that all converge at this university from all over the state and others, and New Mexico and surrounding states, Oklahoma, Arkansas. So I made a lot of really super duper friends, and after school went back to Dallas, and that's where I wound up working for the Marriott Corporation there. And then after 4 years, I was like, you know what, I'm done here in Dallas. I did some local theater there and just felt it was time for me to make that jump. And at 20, I just turned 25, and I thought it's time to go. So I went to Marriott, gave it my notice, said I want to leave, and they gave me a great severance package. And I left with dough in pocket.
Wow.
And drove out to Cali. Yeah, 1990. Actually, it was 1992, so almost 30 years.
Oh, wow. So yeah, you said you done the singing thing was the thing that hit you at 13, and then you said you'd done some performing in like theaters and whatnot. Were you coming out to LA to be a performer primarily, or like was that kind of the goal?
I knew that I was going to work in the entertainment industry, and in school I was a theater major, and so I had been singing and performing, acting most of my life, especially after. Well, I'd started as a kid, but that's just kid around. After 13, I started to take it a lot more seriously and would sing at different types of open mic gigs around East Texas. In school, I was a part of several singing groups, and then went on to, when I was in Dallas, however, working for Marriott Corporation, I mostly did a little bit of modeling and theater, and decided I needed to be in a bigger market, and I knew that I was going to be a performer of some type. So for sure, when I came here to LA at that time, and at that time it was still just enough of old Hollywood still remaining. So
Okay.
there were, some of the old people from the 40s and 50s, and and that was really cool to sort of go to restaurants in different places and see Dean Martin or Sinatra or meet some of those old cats, and I had a good time doing that. But yeah, I initially started out as a performer in LA when I arrived.
Wow. And I love that you mentioned that, like, in '92 there was still kind of the residualness of the old Hollywood era, and obviously Hollywood right now is shut down, like everything else in the world is shut down. But factoring out the whole quarantine thing, can you talk about like what you've seen the difference between 1992 Hollywood throughout the years to 2020 Hollywood?
What was funny is that it really was like a small town. You hear that sort of cliche comment from people, but it really was, because I remember when I first got here, I was like, okay, I got to get into Hollywood. And my uncle had worked for several of the studios most of his life. That was his work. He worked behind the scenes. And of course, that helped me with absolutely nothing.
Good.
But it was nice to sort of sit down with him and have conversations with him and my aunt about their work out here. But he would tell me, stories about movie stars and things on set and so forth. Usually risque stories that I cannot repeat here. But it was you could. First of all, we did not have cell phones.
Sure.
Or email, and so you had to go and visit everybody. And I remember I didn't know how to make an acting resume, and there was a book, I think it was like called 411, and it was everything you needed to know about the entertainment industry, who was doing what. And I found this lady who would make resumes for you. So I went to her little shop, and she did up my resume, and we were talking, and she says, well, the great thing about being an artist and a creative person is that you'll never starve. You'll always find a way. I thought, okay, I guess that's encouraging. She said, you'll always find a way. And she made my resume. And so at that time, you had all these technicians and people who had various skills. I mean, sort of like today, but you had to go visit them, and you would make friends with the people that you would meet and know them for years and years. And you also saw, at least I did at that time, a lot more stars, celebrities on the street. You would be walking around and bump into people. There was the old Samuel French bookstore that I used to go to. You always saw some movie star there or person from another era there. So that part was a lot different than today, and the accessibility that you had to people was very different.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I moved here 6 years ago, and from I hear the tales of old Hollywood, but the Hollywood that I've experienced, at least in the last 6 years, has been very much like the celebrities are kind of isolated in their either their homes or their fancy clubs or whatever, and you may see someone in the grocery store, but not I haven't seen that many of them. I mean, compared to what I kind of was led to believe, like, oh, there's falling off trees here in Hollywood. So, but like for you, it kind of felt like, oh, this was everyone's town, and were people, when if you saw a celebrity walking the street, were people generally pretty cool about it, or how did that?
They were very cool, and I think the difference is that at that time, the kind of celebrities, particularly people who are much older, so it wasn't unusual, for instance, to, let's say you're walking down the street in Beverly Hills and you see Audrey Hepburn.
Oh, wow.
Old movie star. And what was so cool is that even when you didn't recognize them right away, you recognized something about them that was special, that was different, that stood out. There was an energy. And so you would look and go, that person looks really something familiar about them. You go, oh my God, that's Audrey Hepburn. Or you would go to, I had because I came from the hotel industry, I had a penchant for going and sitting in old hotels or very elegant hotels. So I would go to a lot of the hotels in Beverly Hills, and you could see a Frank Sinatra at the piano with a group of people there way back in the day. Or meet, I was sitting down at a place one day, and this lady had this huge, huge wedding ring on, and she asks, "May I sit next to you?" I said, "Of course." I was eating something. I said, "Of course, please do." And she sticks her hand out, and she says, "Hi, I'm Barbara Sinatra." And so I'm like, "Oh, well, hey, I'm Addison Witt. It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Sinatra. How's Frank?"
Oh, hello. And I'm not you, but I'm someone.
So it was. So yeah, they were cool, and there was a. Today is what it is, but these were people from a more elegant time.
Yeah.
And so their mannerisms and their manners and behavior was reminiscent of that time, and the way they interacted with you, and they treated people, everyone the same and very respectfully. And I liked that because I'd grown up watching a lot of those people myself personally. So to come here and just get a little bit of that, I think that really informed me in the way that I would behave as a talent rep, working with people. And so I like that old Hollywood mystique. And so I tried to incorporate at least some of the elegance and manners that those people conveyed. I tried to bring some of that into my style.
That's fantastic. Also, and again, I'm talking from the perspective of an 11-year-old kid in Fort Worth, Texas. So what do I know? But 1992 wasn't that the riots happening? Like, wasn't LA kind of a powder keg back then?
It was a hot mess. It was. I'd made the decision to leave Marriott. I was coming to LA. It was my birthday was in May of that year, and in April they had the LA riots.
Wow.
And I remember being at I think I was at a barber shop getting my hair cut then. Yes, I had a lot more hair. And so I was getting it cut, and we were watching the riots on the television screen there in Dallas. I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I just quit my job, and I'm about to go to LA, and the whole thing has just exploded. And when I drove out here, and so a buddy came with me, and we were driving around, and at the time, the reference I had was, geez, man, this looks like Beirut, which had been a hot center for wars and civil wars and a lot of violence in the region. And that's what LA reminded me of. It was graffiti on everything, and there was a heat in the city and a malaise that felt really dank and dark. But the other thing, and what was funny about that is my aunt and uncle lived in South Central, and at that time South Central had a lot of negative news in the media about gang violence, and I was very apprehensive about being there. I'd come from a really upscale part of Dallas, Texas, and here I was now in South Central LA, and I was like, what the heck? But it was just like any other place, really and truly, for the people who lived there day in and day out. I mean, I would walk to the grocery store every day and buy whatever I needed. And, you walked around. My aunt was very active in the community center. And so she would have events on the weekends and reach out to people in the community. So yes, there was that melee's in the city, and it was dark. But at the same time, it was a city just like any other where people lived their everyday lives, and you dealt with it the best way you could. And it was funny because one of the first, I guess, sightings my aunt wanted to show me, Venus and Serena Williams grew up in that neighborhood.
Oh, nice.
And they were kids playing tennis with their father, drilling that tennis into them. And they had become local stars and celebrities in the area. So, yes, prior to the riot, you had the Williams daughters and their father training just in this little neighborhood. and even after the riot, still coming back to this park to play tennis there. So you had that juxtaposition of this is really tough and dangerous, and there's a lot of energy underneath that, as you said, it's like a powder keg that's exploded. But at the same time, it was also a real place with real people.
Wow. So you get there, you're trying to be a performer, and what was your like? Did you get a lot of auditions? Did you book a lot of things? Like, how was that part of your life?
Well, you know, when you come to LA, of course, in your mind, you're coming out here to just slay the beast and you know, get on top of the dragon and ride it.
Sure.
Always breathing fire. And then you realize, oh, okay, after there's a procedure and a process, and I have to get in line like everyone else. Oh, okay, great. But, you know, I was very confident as a theater major and working on stage. And so initially, I realized that auditioning for television and film was not quite the same as walking into a theater and saying, hey, I'm here and I'd like to audition. And so there's no agent, there was no understanding. And again, we did not have the internet, so it wasn't like you could just look up information and know what to do. And I thought I had studied and prepared, even in Dallas, going through the Yellow Pages, you know. And you know, I don't know if people know what the Yellow Pages are, but it was an old book.
They can Wikipedia it. They can figure it out. It's
a lot of information. You turn and go, oh, okay, look up agents. Great. And so now you could go and knock on people's doors and they would answer and say, get the hell out of here. They would at least answer, you know, and sometimes every once in a while they'd talk to you, you'd have a conversation and school you on what you needed to know. But I knew that I could work in the theater. So you know what? I said, every theater needs a volunteer. So I'm going to go and find local theaters. So the Hermosa Beach Theater, Hermosa Beach Civic Theater in Hermosa Beach had a show on producing a play called A Prelude to a Kiss, nice. Which was a big movie. And I called them and said, hey, I am a theater major. I can run concessions or I can work backstage. You need any help with anything? I went, oh my God, someone was supposed to work concessions tonight and they didn't show up. Could you come in tonight? I'm there.
Wow.
Hermosa Beach, ran the concession booth that night by myself, selling Snickers and Coca-Cola, popcorn. And then at the end of the night, a lady came over, we got to talking, and I told her, yes, I've come out here to be in movies. And she says, well, there's a play going on that I think you would be right for in Palos Verdes. And they have auditions, and call this number and see if you can get in. Sure enough, there was an audition the next day. I went, I auditioned, I got the part, and that became my first foray into working in Hollywood. The show was great, met a lot of, in fact, I met people during that first performance, and I'd only been here for, you know, a month or a couple of months. I met people that first performance that are still, I'm incredibly close to this day. We all became a family, very, very good friends, wound up living all in the same neighborhoods, got together all the time for years and years and years. I was just on the phone the other day with my buddy that I've known all these years. So it was an incredible experience. And that led from one play to the next play to the next to the next. And what was crazy is that I was very fortunate to have that experience right away, but it was also a little bit misleading because then I thought, wow, you make friends like this and colleagues like this and everybody's really tight. And so for years I would do other plays and like, I hate these people. You know, thinking that every opportunity, every time was going to be like the first. No, that took years and years.
I mean, that's really, I mean, yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because like you're a month in and you've already got this support group of people that you really like. You're already working, you know, doing the thing you came out here for. But yeah, it's the lightning in a bottle, right? You're like, oh, is every place just going to be full of good people and contacts? But that's fantastic. You got that out the first. So you're doing a lot of theater. Did that wind up? You know, did you do any on camera stuff or? How'd that work? I started doing some on-camera stuff. I got some bit parts early on. I was
you may remember Peter Falk,
Mhm.
who had a TV series on called Columbo for
Oh yeah.
a long time ago, and I was a big fan. And my first little part I got was on a show they did, sort of a Columbo uh, movie of the week they were making with Peter Falk, and I was a gambler at a casino and stood next to Mr. Falk and just had a little bit of a tete-a-tete interaction with him. So that was my first on-camera experience. And then I got a commercial agent and started going out for commercials. But I have to say, I wrecked my car also
Oh.
pretty early into moving out here, and that sort of threw a whole monkey wrench into my operation.
Yeah.
And frankly, I couldn't get or didn't feel I was getting enough auditions to make the kind of living that I wanted to make, and especially working as a manager with Marriott, I was doing pretty well financially, and
Nice.
and again came out with a little bit of a severance package. And although it was only 10 grand at that time, it was 10 grand, and that was a big help
Sure.
then. But I needed more, and so I actually wound up going back to Marriott here in California after wrecking my car, and thought, okay, let me sort of regroup. And I wound up becoming a manager again with Marriott, and did that for 3 years before I realized, okay, I didn't come to LA to go back into Marriott, be a manager, and working at a hotel. So I left. They gave me another $10,000 severance package. I thought, oh, I think I found a rhythm here. And so,
Well, thanks, Marriott. This is like home base. They're like, and
yeah,
touch 10 grand, and see you next time.
and so I left again, and I thought, you know what, this time I can't ever go back, hell or high water. And I wound up answering a little, but I should do something to at least keep some cash flow going. I don't want to spend all my money in one place.
Sure.
So I wound up working for the Almason Theater downtown, the Music Center, which was really dope because as a theater major, I got to see all free shows at the Mark Taper Forum, at the Almason, and I got an extra ticket to bring anyone I wanted to. I hooked up all my friends, all were either theater majors or in the business in some way. And anytime there was a new show in town, I was like calling people. There was a big list and taking people. And I have to say that was an incredibly fun time because we were still kids at that time. I was still in my mid-20s and we were going downtown. And I had the parking pass and swipe that thing and go see a really fantastic show that was coming in from Broadway. And so that, believe it or not, led to me creating a show on my own show called How to Live and Survive in Hollywood. And I would go around town and interview agents, managers, casting directors, actors, people I knew. What brought you here? What has your experience been like? And this is so strange, but in a month of having that show, it was sort of like your show where I was just sort of talking live, and at the time we had the old VHS cameras you put on your shoulder, and I was filming everybody and filming the city. And I had a manager by then, and my manager called and said, look, I hear that you've got this show and you are going to casting offices and volunteering your time. Went, yeah, it's going great. And she said, I could use some help in the office. Would you mind helping me? And I go, oh yeah, this is great. This is for my show. I'm gonna create VHSs and sell them all around the country and show people what it takes to come to LA and do this. I went to her office, started going through the breakdowns. Now, most people didn't know that I had a managerial background with Marriott. They just thought, some dumb kid coming in from Texas.
Sure. Wants to be a star.
So the owners of the company were like, you're working here for free? I said, well, I'm interning, and I've got a whole plan. So I got this. Don't worry about it. And so the owner of the company was like, well, but I feel like I should pay you something. Is 20 enough? And I'm like, yeah. So at the end of the day, he gives me $100. And I said, oh, I thought it was 20 for gas money. He said, 20 an hour? He really thought I was some dumb kid from Texas. He really did. He was like, you just fell off the turnip truck.
20 a whole hour? Right.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my God. And so I've made it now, Ma. And so that led to $100 a day. Then it led to $500. I was like making $500 for the week, just going through breakdowns, sort of doing this work. And my manager's like, wow, you're really good at these breakdowns. Actors started getting auditions. And, I was just going in, doing that thing. It wasn't that serious to me, other than I loved going through the breakdowns and learning the system. And I had interviewed enough agents, managers, casting directors, producers, where I now had a whole sense of how things worked. And that led to me becoming my manager, wound up, unfortunately, having breast cancer and some other things, and wound up leaving. I then became the head of that department. And
Wow.
And started getting to know agents in town and all these amazing people. And then people started calling me saying, oh my God, I hear you're running this department. It's going really well. If you need anything, I'm here. I'm looking for this, that, and the other. And so a lot of the kids I started working with, mostly kids at the time, started working. And I was teaching them. I would teach them on the weekends how to audition for commercials, and they started booking commercials like crazy, independent films, and then that started to expand. And then, now, there's a part I left out. So while I was doing this, I had created another name for myself, because I was singing, I was acting, and there was an actor by the name of Keith Robinson, who was a SAG member. And when you're a SAG member, you can't have the same name as another actor, especially if they got it first. So I created another name, and I would call agents and pitch Keith Robinson, the actor. And I wound up getting, during this time, while I was assisting my manager, I wound up getting a TV show pilot called Crash. Mm-hmm. And the movie Colors had come out with Robert Duvall and Sean Penn.
That is one of my favorite films of all time.
One of my favorite films. And I was watching this film. I had seen it years ago in college. I was watching the film because Crash, the pilot, was based on the film Colors.
Oh, wow.
And the crash unit at the LAPD. It was an actual real unit, just like that, just like the film. 2:00 in the morning, I'm teaching all day. I'm representing people, or at least assisting my manager in representing people. And now I've got this pilot, and I'm thinking, this is it. This is great. This is the doorway that's open for me. And a woman crashes her car into my living room at 2 a.m. Yeah, just like that.
What?
I'm literally standing in the living room, and I hear tires spinning out of control outside of my window. Now, this wasn't the first time. This was something common. I lived at the corner of Rexford Drive and Olympic Boulevard in Beverly Hills. And I'd only been living there a month. And in that month, I had heard many times cars spinning out of control. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to start documenting this. I'm going to get a camera, and the next time a car is spinning out of control, I'm going to film that baby.
Wow.
I got a story to tell.
And this is an old, like, VHS on the shoulder. Like, this isn't a cell phone. It's a big motherfucker, right?
So, car spinning out of control. I hear it. I'm looking for the camera in the living room. And the wheel, usually it's spinning out of control, bam, impact. Spinning out of control, revving up, no impact. So I stop, go, wait, this is different. And then I realized, and of course, all this is happening in nanoseconds in my head. This is different. Wow, oh no, this car is going to hit the side of the neighbor's building. Poor people, dang. I better be ready to go outside and help them. No, it's going to hit the corner of my building, still spinning out of control. No, it's coming through my window. Car comes through my living room window in Beverly Hills. Fortunately, I'm standing by the phone, the old phone that you have to pick up, and I dialed 911, said, yes, hi, this is Addison Witt. I'm here in Beverly Hills, and I'm calling to report an automobile accident. Where is it? I said, it's in my living room.
I'm calling to report an automobile accident. Location, living room.
In my living room. Are you okay? I said, I'm fine. I'm fine. I said, but I don't know about the people in the car. I go outside wearing a bathrobe and socks, glass everywhere in the front yard. Fortunately, there was a flower bed with a 2-foot wall, and the back tires were caught on that 2-foot wall, and that prevented the car from coming all the way into the living room.
Wow.
So I go outside, and this woman is bent over, and there's already a couple of witnesses that happened to see her. She was inebriated, and she was weaving, and she was about to hit another car and overcompensated, and it just happened to line up directly into my living room. And the fire department was there, and they whispered to me, you might want to go ahead and pack up and leave because there's going to be a media circus. And it was a media circus. I said, well, who is that woman? Arnell Simpson, O.J. Simpson's daughter.
Oh, crap.
Drove her car into my living room at 2 o'clock in the morning in April. And so, sure enough, it was I didn't pack. I thought, are you kidding? Pack up and leave? I want to be here for this media show. You know what I do?
I'm the ringmaster, but let's get in here.
We're not going anywhere. Let me get ready. So I put on my ascot, my best ascot, and they came a knocking at the door and said, yeah, we understand there was an automobile accident in your living room. I said, sure was. Channel 4 showed up, Channel 5 showed up, Channel 7 showed up. I was then known as Lisa Gibbons call, like, oh, we want to talk to you. People become famous overnight. People were calling and offering me film roles and all kinds of craziness. And I was on the phone all day. People were coming to my yard and picking up bricks and putting them in their bags. And I would see little old ladies like grandparents with their grandchildren. And this is where it happened, right here.
You were a tour guide spot.
Everywhere I went in town, people were pointing like, there he is. There's the guy. And this was all before reality shows took off. So that was a thrill back then, you know?
Yeah.
I was excited. And so now, but the thing is, on all the news stations, I had introduced myself as Addison Witt. And so all of a sudden, no one had ever met Addison Witt. They'd only met Keith Robinson. So now there's a face with Addison Witt. And it no longer worked for me to call and go, yeah, I'm pitching Keith Robinson. And so I was outed and was told by agents and various people, industry insiders, that I would have to make a decision and either be the talent manager or be the actor. And I said, well, Addison Witt stuck, and I was much more, at that point, successful as a talent manager. It had already started building careers, and so that became my life for the next 20 years of just building careers and working with actors. And it wasn't, and every once in a while, because people knew me, I would get an acting gig, and I wound up doing 3 reality series and other things based on my work as a talent manager.
Wow. So theoretically, I mean, or hypothetically, like if that car had never crashed through your window, you could have still been riding that line of like part manager, part actor for who knows how long.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what happened with the pilot?
So I called the guys and said, hey, this is what's happening. People called me to do talk shows, and I'll promote the show. And unfortunately, the pilot didn't go anywhere. It wasn't picked up with their thing, and that was the end of it. And so that helped me make that decision as well. And I thought at the time that I would work representing people. I would build a reputation, and ultimately what I knew that I wanted to do was produce movies and television. And so I thought, well, I'll build this and do this for the next 5 to 10 years, and then I'll move into another phase of my life and do different things. And it wound up being 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And obviously you must have enjoyed it to stick with it for those 20 years. What is it about managing talent that just kept you, loving your job and waking up and doing it every day?
Well, there were a couple of things. Number one, I happen to be really good at it.
Nice. That helps.
and so that really did help, because I just understood out of, the background with Marriott and working for such an exceptional company that really educated me on how to manage an operation, set goals, and achieve them. So
Nice.
That's really important. That was an important foundation. And I always gave Marriott and that experience credit for setting me up in the way that I worked as a manager. The other thing is that I had such an incredible love for the acting craft, and helping people was also a part of my DNA, and helping people achieve their goals. I mean, I think I've been most of my life a kind of armchair psychologist that intuitively understand how to problem solve.
Yeah.
And so helping my clients get there and understand in the very simplest terms that acting and the acting profession didn't have to seem so far away and unattainable, that there are practical steps and procedures a person can take that will help them become successful faster. And I see you doing a lot of that work and offering that kind of assistance to people, and the practicality of it, the step-by-step process. You do these things and this is what follows. Once I identified my system and approach, then I just, it's like, don't recreate the wheel. So
Yeah.
once I knew that if I do this, this happens. And so then I could basically take almost any actor, any person rather, and help them achieve a level of success. That success, of course, is going to be different based on the individual person, who they are, their own drive and determination and so forth is a massive factor in accomplishing those goals. But if they at least know the process and how to get there, so the successes that came early was also what kept me going every day, because we would get great projects, and then those projects would lead to something else. And then when you're seeing people on screen that you have coached before an audition, they are in the top 3 every time when the decisions are being made, and you then see them on screen doing your facial expressions and your kind of quirks, it's like, oh, okay, then I see a part of myself there, and now that has been immortalized as well, and maybe nobody else knows but me and the actor. But all of that, or that whole combination, is what kept me excited about the work that I was doing.
That's fantastic. And I don't know who all watches this. I mean, there's going to be people in the industry, but there's a lot of people outside the industry that I think still believe, and I know that I believe this, before I got here, was that acting was, the success of any particular actor particularly was largely based on their own talent, like what they brought. But, what I've learned and what you've clearly, cemented here, it seems like that's a part of it, but there's a whole like pie of, different pieces that get put together, and having someone in your corner, having, good support staff, managers, stuff like that is also a big factor, maybe even a bigger factor.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
No, it totally is, because there's so many aspects. I mean, I worked, and we can talk about this a little bit later whenever you want to, but I was very privileged to be a part of the Breaking Bad series. and on AMC. And one of the things I enjoyed most whenever we got to a project like that was to meet the movers and shakers behind the network, the executive producers, and really get a sense of where they were coming from, because that also informed me in the
Yeah.
way that I could guide others. And there's at the time, he was vice president of AMC and later became president. His name is Charlie Collier. He was a great, great guy and leader, and very easy to talk to. And when we got Breaking Bad, I think R.J. Mitty was nominated very early on, the first season, for, I believe, well, I don't know if he was nominated. We were invited to the Cinematheque Awards, and they were honoring Julia Roberts that particular year, that first year we went. And I got a chance to talk to Charlie Collier, and he came over and was very friendly with us, loved what RJ was doing. And, you know, RJ Mitty has cerebral palsy. And although that did not impact his intelligence and way of thinking, because it was a very visible and physical disability, people often thought it did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They see the involuntary body jerks and so forth and think, oh, you really know how to listen and talk well. Yeah, well, he's not stupid.
Yeah, everything here is fine. Yeah.
And so everyone was always like, oh, and they look at me and sort of marvel that, wow, you took on this kid with CP.
Just to be clear, like, I don't know if we met, because he was your client. Like, you helped him get that gig.
That's correct. That is correct. We got that gig. He had done no acting prior to that other than me coaching him and working with him and teaching him how to be present and in the moment, how to audition and engage and interact in scene study and improvisation. And we wound up getting Breaking Bad.
Wow.
Charlie Collier said to me that when he meets with the board of directors and investors, they are really interested in bottom line, how much money is this show making? And because AMC, a cable network, is unlike HBO, where there are no actual physical boxes to count, they have to rely, the board of directors have to rely on the leadership to tell them the ways that they're going to count their money. And at the time, I think Bryan Cranston had been nominated for an Emmy when Charlie was telling me this, or maybe even had won the Emmy. And he was saying to the board of directors, well, Bryan Cranston has won the Emmy, and that's going to make a big difference for us. And the board of directors asked, who's Bryan Cranston? Because these people are so removed and so out of touch with the everyday that you would have to really be a household name for them to get who you are, and that would make a difference. And I thought about that, and I realized, and this is based on what you're saying, I realized that every group has their own motivation and agenda and the thing that is important to them. So if you're the board of director, you're seeing things from a totally different perspective than the actor, certainly. The actor needs to get through the manager and agent, through the casting director, and to the producer. And that's their point of focus. And that's why when they're networking, they go after those people and talk to them because they believe that's going to make a difference. The producers have a different agenda and need, and they have to satisfy ultimately that network and that studio, who has to then satisfy the board of directors. So everybody has their own focus. So for me, I started to think, well, I don't want to think like the manager or the agent. I want to think like the board of directors, and I want to think like the studio, because the studio then needs names of people who can bring a following, who are going to help them fulfill their objective and make money and make a profit. So I started to think more in that way as I was developing actors. And although I developed a lot of people and they were not yet household names, my training from the very beginning was to impart the thought and belief that you could become a household name, not from a place of fantasy, but from practical, step-by-step procedures, so that we would think like the people who are telling the stories and would become allies to them, opposed to simple or simply employees of them.
Wow. It's just brilliant to hear, because You know, and I'm probably you had the same experience as a theater actor coming out here. You know, a lot of actors, writers, and other creatives who come down here, I think, still have this idea of, oh, I just got to be really good at my craft, and you know, it's all about the craft and fans, and you know, that kind of thing. But I mean, this town really is, you know, whether good or bad, you know, whatever you want to call it, it's based on are you making money for the people at the top who are funding it, who are doing that kind of thing? You know, it's kind of like, I'm not trying to disparage it, but it worked kind of like the mafia. You
Yeah, well, sure, sure.
know,
And even in the stories, we'll use guns and telling the stories. You know, sure, sure.
fair, fair.
So it is because there's a system, and you have to get into and understand the system. I think that's why a lot of people who do become successful as performers or whatever they do, even in music and different parts of entertainment, they eventually become deal makers and business owners and producers because you understand that ultimately there's a system here of making money, you know, in the same way that other businesses have to make a profit.
Yeah, I watched a documentary recently just talking about how people make money, and one thing they said was, you know, Michael Jordan made 90 million playing basketball, which, you know, is of course a lot of money, but the amount of money he made, like he made $1 billion with like Gatorade and Nike and all the partnerships and whatnot. And it's like, yes, he was the greatest basketball player of all time, and that did get him money. But if he wasn't a deal maker or had someone else doing it for him, whatever, like he would not be near. He literally wouldn't even be a tenth of how much he's worth now.
And that happens a lot also with actors. You know, sometimes I don't know if it's the same truth today, but at one time, you know, if you were on television, everybody believed you're rich.
Sure.
You know, you've got tons of money because you're on this television and medium. But it's the people that are able to take that platform and the resources that they generate there and invest that money in different areas that is going to have an even higher return. And some of the people who have the most money, it is because they have taken their money from there and invested it wisely and have become super wealthy.
Wow. I could talk to you all day, but let's just so you're more or less, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of retired from the management industry. Is that accurate?
Yeah, because, you know, I knew that, like I said, I thought 5 to 10 years, and I realized by year 10 that, like, whoa, I was supposed to stop at this time. And then it took another 5 years to sort of work my way out of that. And then I went back to working as an actor, working in television. I wound up doing 3 reality series, one here in the US, and one in Canada, and then one in England, where I lived for a short while. And so I started doing that to kind of work my way out of it. And each time I tried to step away, clients would book series or something. And, you know, and I wanted to be committed to that and to those people. And so I would work a little bit longer. And now I'm down to one client slash co-producing partner. We've got a couple of projects that we are moving along. One is a reality series. Another is a film project. And then I've gone back to working in commercials, which has been great, great fun. I was on a roll before COVID-19 said, sit down. And, you know, I booked like 7 or 8 back to back, and I had 2 on hold, and it just booked one with Amy Poehler. And I say that because you're a Second City guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, we know where Amy Poehler got her start.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just worked with her in a commercial. She was a hoot and a lot of fun, of course, naturally. And that was the last one before they said, you guys got to go home and no more work. So I do that. I, you know, have a couple of teaching commercial videos. I've always loved commercials. They're fun. And I am in a category where, you know, I get the calls, which is really great. And so that's been a lot of fun. And then I'm doing some other things, you know, just sort of doing a little bit of this and that until I find something that I really, really like. I've been focused on voiceovers and, you know, just being creative and and coming up with lots of things to do, especially right now while we are all on lockdown.
Yeah. So you came here to be an actor. You did the management forever, and now you're acting again.
Yeah, full circle.
I love it. I love it. I could talk to you all day, but we're about at the hour mark, and that's where attention spans tend to go on podcasts like this. So, is it what do you have anything you'd like to plug? Anything you want to steer people towards?
So yes, as a matter of fact, definitely on udemy.com, you can check out my commercials. Getting started, it's the basics in terms of just getting started and how to do it. So that's Addison Witt on udemy.com, working in commercials. And then secondly, I am going to be coming out with a line of CBD products, home care, really cool things, a line for men and a line for women. And I'm working with my friend, and we have thecbdboulevard.com. And a lot of our products are there on thecbdboulevard.com. And you can order online, and we'll send great stuff to you. And as soon as this lockdown is over, I'm going to refocus on putting all that together and coming out with a great product and great package.
Fantastic. You are just a big fan, my friend. You're a caring guy. You're a smart guy. You're a business guy. You've got so many good stories. We're going to have you on another time just to tell more stories because you're full of them. Thank you so much for being on the show.
That is true. So, well, it's always great, man. You're awesome. Keep up the great work. I love what you're doing as well. And it's a mutual appreciation because I think you're a great guy too.
All right. A couple of bald Texans. Just
there you go, right?
Yeah. Addison Witt, thank you so much for being on Rich Baker and Friends.
All right, my brother. Take care.